Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Normally, I would say something like, why so serious? But the question ought to be, what's so funny? This woman is deranged. Is Kamala perhaps laughing through tears? Once again, she's proving that the only thing that makes her laugh is when something bad is happening to someone. She cackles like a witch. I mean, nothing tickles her like seeing people suffering.
I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter. She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
Yeah, she has a long-standing track record of making it clear to everybody that she thinks something's funny when people are being hurt or inconvenienced or harmed. That's the kind of thing that just tickles her no end. And I'm sure that to whatever gaggle of hens that she was hooping it up with, I'm sure that she just thought to herself that she was really making some points. But the truth of the matter is, to the public who saw it, even people who don't like the orange man, all Kamala Harris was doing was reminding everybody exactly why it is that they didn't think that she was fit for office. This is part of the problem with this woman. She laughs when ain't a doggone thing funny. She could care less about what happens to the country. All she cares about is that America rejected her twice in 18 months. So to her, this is the country being punished for having rejected her. All those years of being the pet skank for Willie Brown, all of that butt kissing that she did, all for nothing. So I guess Trump's not the only one on a revenge tour. And you notice that as usual, she's not saying a word about what ought to be done differently, what policies she would enact, because she didn't have any policies on the campaign trail 6 months ago either. Trump's main talking point was that he was going to be a transformational president, that he was going to make big changes, fundamental changes, that he would alter the basic way that things are. And when you look at how things have gone under both Democrat and Republican presidents alike, only a fool or a cable news pundit would deny that there's a very good reason that those who supported Trump or those who reviled him, nonetheless both sides saw certain advantages in him becoming president twice. And the Democrats know it. Even Harris's former running mate admitted to it.
What does "I told you so" really mean here? I mean, people heard her message. They did not vote for her. She lost every battleground state. You yourself have criticized the Harris-Walz campaign for being too cautious. She may have told the American people, she may have warned the American people, but she didn't do it compellingly enough to win.
That is the absolute point. And look, when I criticize, I'm criticizing myself. I own this. I'm part of the ticket. And somebody has to come up with a strategy. I think this is exactly right. This is the thing. Look, Democrats, it was a good night in Wisconsin. I was over there. We saw that happen. Donald Trump's doing this. Just to be clear, nobody on the Democratic side is celebrating this, and those folks in the street are not celebrating that Donald Trump's making all these errors. I think what the vice president's saying is that was pretty self-evident that he was going to do that. I do think the challenge for Democrats, and this is, I think, a structural problem that's going to take a lot more thinking, why, with all of that out there, did they not think we were any better than that? And they didn't. And I'm very concerned with the folks who stayed home. And these are folks that I'll say once again, Donald Trump has identified their angst. They can't buy a house. They can't afford to get a good education. They're concerned that their economic future is so precarious it could slip out from under them. Less than half of Americans have $1,000 in savings. And I think, why was it not so compelling? It should have been a slam dunk for us to say, we're the party that cares about that.
That's because there's a ton of things in America that have problems which both parties have refused to address. I've detailed for you how San Francisco has been the origin of both the plagues of the tech bros and the housing crisis, which, by the way, was also driven in large part by tech workers coming to San Francisco, which drove housing prices through the stratosphere. And this was Democrats who created these monsters. These things didn't just happen under their noses. It happened as the direct result of their willing connivance and their policies. And this has created a parasitic relationship between the real estate market and the public. The tech bros that made untold trillions off of selling people's data and manipulating the public through their social media networks. This is a techno-oligarchy, and everyone sees it, except for apparently the Democrats who didn't feel the need to do anything. And when you had people in the streets in California protesting, literally chanting the rent is too damned high, people were furious in that state. In that case, a Democrat was running things, Gavin Newsom, and with the real estate interest and greedy landlords confiscating the public's wealth and trapping them in a prison of debt and financial deprivation, rather than Democrats admitting to what they did and the part they played in all this, instead Democrats began trying to cause distractions and diversions on social issues like abortion, immigration, global warming, transgender bathrooms. The people made it clear for 20 years what the problem was. Skid Row grew by leaps and bounds. Homelessness quickly became the #1 problem in the state. But the Democratic leadership was only thinking about how much money they were getting from the tech bros and how many of their family members and friends were being enriched by all of this real estate activity. So for the Democrats, there wasn't a problem. Now, are the Republicans complicit in all this? Of course they are. Problem is, they're not the ones who told the working classes that they were on their side. They're not the ones who pretended as if they were on the side of the little guy. San Francisco Democrats, like Kamala Harris, were the ones who did much to create this whole mess. They were the ones who created the circumstances that made so many people think that maybe an angry orange Cheeto should become president. Because if the system and its corrupt administrators were totally unresponsive to the people's needs, then why not bring in somebody who'll make a total mess of it all? This is what happened. And San Francisco was ground zero for it. Kamala Harris was out there for decades, but she didn't say one word about it. And neither do the other Democrats like the Squad. They don't dare talk about it. What are they going to be doing about all of these hedge funds, all of these private equity firms who are buying up the country, who are the ones driving the cost of living crisis? Even Bernie Sanders doesn't dare say it. They're continuing to play act as if they don't know what's really going on, as if it's all just the usual banter about the haves and the have-nots. But they don't talk about who the haves are or what they're going to do about them. Continuing to play act as if they don't truly know where the cost of living crisis came from or what to do about it, and they certainly didn't have anything to do with it. That's what makes Kamala Harris's laughing about this all so perverted. The people saw a radical decline in their living standards, and when they put Obama in office, he gave the middle finger to Main Street and intentionally made the choice to bail out Wall Street instead. This was the Democrats' biggest act of contempt for the public since the '94 crime bill. This created a huge void of support for the Democrats that Trump was able to step into. Democrats gave the middle finger to the voters, so a lot of them saw Trump as a way to give the middle finger right back. And have Democrats learned from all this? Have they realized that they have been their own biggest enemy? That they must now finally address the economic issues that they've talked about but refuse to do anything about? Of course not. Even now, Kamala and the Democrats are pushing for more of the same. Continuity, the same old status quo. Barack Obama claimed to be a change candidate, but the only thing that changed was the rhetoric. And Hillary, Biden, Kamala, those clowns didn't even promise to be change. All they said is, we're not Trump, and that's all we have to do. Well, the voters decided that the Democrats would have to do more than that. Democrats ought to be rushing to admit to their political sins and promising to atone for it by enacting the policies that their base have been demanding for decades. But instead, the Democrats are hoping that Trump's economic incompetence will drive his approval ratings low enough that the Democrats will be able to slither back into power without having to do anything. The stock market is taking a hit, but the big money that backed Trump, they didn't do it because they thought that he would do things to harm their interests. If this mad gambit of his actually does pan out, then Democrats could well see their chances of getting control of Congress back for nothing slip away. And of course, what they'll do is blame what the white media is intentionally mislabeling as the far left for that. Whatever happens, that's what they're going to say regardless. When the reality is that neither defund the police nor any other corner of the activist left are to blame. The Democratic leadership has become too much like the Republicans, to the point that they are just as determined as the GOP to attack Democratic voters. Now, they could change that, like they pretended to do in 2020, and start winning elections again. But as Jim Himes admitted, this is not about winning elections. This is about preserving a particular status quo as dictated to them by their big donors. The point of this morning's briefing is that Kamala Harris is proving why, even though Trump isn't fit to run a fever, much less a country, neither is she. What does it say about her that at this late date, with fascism on the march, her priority is to try to take glee in a bad situation and tell people, "I told you so"? Sure, the Republicans do the same thing, being malicious and hateful is their brand, but I thought Democrats said that they were supposed to be the adults in the room. Well, what adult does this? A display of schadenfreude may be what you do when you're talking to a few of your select supporters behind closed doors, but the reality is the Democrats are suffering from a real confidence and credibility gap, and displays like this do nothing to close it. For the people who voted for Kamala Harris, my question for you is this. Putting her typical cackling witch routine aside, did she say even one word about what she would do were she in charge? Or did she just give the usual empty rhetoric that sounds like blah, blah, blah? Midterm elections are almost always a guarantee that the party out of the White House will get at least one House of Congress back. But Democrats can't just assume that things are going to fall into their laps. What they're expecting is to get back into power by letting Trump's typical bad decisions and worse press do all the heavy lifting for them. Past election cycles show that they're probably right, but Trump has beaten the odds before. And if public perception about the economy does improve significantly over the next 18 months, then it will be the orange man who once again gets the last laugh. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: James Dinkins, Richard Allen Lovell, Ogun Spirit, Elisa Boutte, and Rhonda Handsome. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.